Coco Gauff reflects on breaking free from expectations placed on her as a young athlete. The world had been watching Coco Gauff for nearly as long as she had held a tennis racket. From the moment she burst onto the professional stage as a 15-year-old prodigy, the headlines were relentless. Next Serena Williams, teen sensation shocks Wimbledon. The praise was intoxicating, but the pressure was inescapable. Each victory was scrutinized, each loss dissected, and every action on and off the court became part of a narrative she never asked to be the protagonist of. Yet, within this whirlwind of expectations, Gauff began a journey, one not just to become a champion athlete, but to reclaim herself in the shadows of the world's assumptions, the weight of comparisons. Coco often recalled her earliest days in tennis, when her passion for sport was pure, untainted by contracts, media interviews, and rankings. The game was simple, a ball, a racket, and the joy of movement. But as her victories multiplied, so did the comparisons. She was constantly measured against legends like Serena Williams, Venus Williams, and other icons whose legacies seemed impossible to match. For a young teenager, this wasn't just a challenge. It was a cage. Each time she stepped on the court, she was reminded not just of her opponent, but of thousands of eyes envisioning her as the next great star. Friends from school would sometimes treat her differently. Coaches would discuss her not as a player, but as an investment. And media outlets framed her every success as a continuation of a story that belonged to someone else. Coco learned early that to thrive in such an environment, she would need more than skill. She would need resilience. Yet resilience, she realized, was not enough if she did not first understand who she was and what she truly wanted. Discovering her own voice, breaking free began subtly. It was not a single epiphany, but a series of quiet revelations. During moments alone, on long flights between tournaments, in empty practice courts, and in the stillness of the early morning, Coco started asking herself questions that no one else dared to ask. Am I playing for me? Or am I playing for everyone else's expectations? She reflected on her favorite memories of tennis. Not the championship matches or the trophy ceremonies, but the hours spent with her family, laughing after missed shots, and celebrating small victories in local clubs. Those were the moments when tennis felt joyful, free, and entirely hers. Coco also turned to her support system, her mother, Coco Gauff, her coaches, and a small circle of friends, to reinforce the idea that her identity was more than the labels others assigned her. Their unwavering belief that her worth was independent of rankings or public opinion became a lifeline. She began to understand that the pressure to conform to an external narrative could be redirected. She didn't have to reject the accolades, but she could choose what meaning they held. The crucible of public scrutiny. The transition from teenage prodigy to adult athlete is difficult for any player. For Coco, it was amplified by the constant media scrutiny. Interviews would often pivot from her performance to her personal life. Social media posts were dissected for hidden messages, and every slip-up was magnified. At first, she internalized the criticism. She questioned herself after every loss, wondering if she was failing the public, the sponsors, or even her family. But slowly, she began to filter the noise. She realized that while some feedback could be constructive, much of it was rooted in assumptions, comparisons, or simple spectacle. Coco learned to respond not with defensiveness, but with clarity about her own goals. In one particularly memorable moment after a tough loss at a major tournament, Coco stepped to the press with quiet confidence. She spoke not of the defeat, but what she had learned about herself and her approach to the game. The journalists listened, perhaps expecting the usual scripted answers, and instead received honesty. It was a small act, but one that marked a turning point. She was beginning to claim her own narrative, redefining success. One of the most profound realizations Coco embraced was the need to redefine success on her own terms. For years, the world had told her that winning titles was the ultimate measure of greatness. While championships were undeniably important, she began to see them as part of a larger mosaic of achievement that included personal growth, mental well-being, and the joy of competition. Coco started experimenting with her routines, exploring different training methods, and even pursuing interests outside of tennis. Music, fashion, philanthropy, and social media engagement that reflected her personality rather than a curated image. Each new pursuit was a declaration. She was more than prodigy or a brand. She was an individual with passions, opinions, and dreams. Breaking free from external expectations did not mean she abandoned discipline. On the contrary, she became more intentional with her practice, selecting tournaments that challenged her growth rather than simply adding to her accolades. She sought mentors who encouraged curiosity and self-reflection, not just performance, facing the internal struggle. Yet, even as she claimed autonomy, there were days of doubt. Coco confessed that the internalized voice of critics often lingered. In moments of exhaustion or during slumps in performance, it was tempting to revert to old patterns, to chase perfection, to seek validation through wins, or to measure herself against others' achievements. It was in these moments that she practiced mindfulness, reflection, and self-compassion. Meditation, journaling, and conversations with her closest allies became tools for recalibration. Each challenge, each misstep, became not a reflection of failure, but an opportunity to understand her motivations and clarify her values. Slowly, the cacophony of external pressures began to fade, replaced by a steadier. She reflects on her journey with humility and gratitude. The young girl who once feared the way of comparisons has transformed into a woman who embraces them as context, not constraint. She recognizes that expectations are inevitable, but she has learned that they need not dictate her trajectory. Her victories, both on and off the court, are celebrations of autonomy, authenticity, and the relentless pursuit of self-discovery. Conclusion: Coco Gauff's story is a masterclass in breaking free from external pressures. It is a reminder that talent, while remarkable, is only part of an athlete's journey. Equally vital is the capacity to reflect, assert individuality, and navigate the complex interplay of public scrutiny and personal aspiration. Through deliberate reflection, supportive mentorship, and an unwavering commitment to her authentic self, Coco has redefined what it means to be a young athlete in the modern world. Her narrative is no longer controlled by others. It is hers, full of triumphs, trials, and the freedom to explore every facet of her identity. And in doing so, she has inspired a generation not just to aim for greatness, but to seek it on their own terms. Coco Gauff reminds us that breaking free is not a single act of defiance, but a lifelong journey of self-discovery. It is a journey she continues with grace, courage, and an unwavering belief that the truest victory is the freedom to be oneself. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Till next time.